first thing the plateau does is remove scale. Maps tell you Tibet is big, high, remote. The land itself tells you it is something else entirely. A lifted world, a table of stone pushed into the wind, the Earth's slow collision frozen at 4,000, 4,500, 5,000 meters above the ordinary. Down below, rivers fight their way to seas. Up here, rivers are just beginning to think. Down below, mountain ranges are walls. Up here, mountain ranges are decorations around the edge of a sky that feels too close and too bright. Air is present but not generous. Every breath is a small negotiation. The sun is closer, harder, white on the shoulders, white on the roofs, white on the snow summits of ranges you can name. Himalaya to the south, Kunlun to the north, and on many you can't. Clouds move like caravans, slow, casting shadows the size of cities across yellow grass, turquoise lakes, and brown wind-combed hills. Prayer flags, 5 colors, 5 elements, crackle from passes and rooftops and bridge rails, the wind doing for centuries what mouths and ink could not, carry the mantra outward, upward, everywhere. From above, the plateau looks dry. On the ground, water is everywhere, but in thin lines. Glacial melt snakes through meadows where yaks graze with their heads down and tails like dusters. Wetlands flash green where you didn't expect them. Willows huddle along streams. Distant snowfields promise tomorrow's rivers to people thousands of kilometers away. Because that is Tibet's other secret. What begins here does not stay here. The Yarlung Tsangpo, coiling east before dropping, is the Brahmaputra. The Indus, threading west through gorges, Sutlej, Mekong, Salween, Yangtze, Yellow River, great names that start as quiet trickles in cold silence under sky. Half of Asia drinks what this roof gives. Human life at this height looks deliberate. Villages are low, whitewashed, boxy, built to keep warmth and deflect wind. Windows are outlined in black or red, wooden lintels carved with protective symbols. Roofs hold stacks of yak dung drying for fuel. Prayer flags, sometimes barley spread to sun-dry between harvests. Fields where fields can exist are miracles written in green. Highland barley, Sampa's source, waving under an ultraviolet sun, potatoes, mustard, tiny orchards where altitude allows. A single line of poplars can mark a whole valley as inhabited. Roads cross the plateau like measured thoughts. Asphalt climbs in spirals to passes above 5,000 meters, where signs tell you height because your lungs already know. At the crest, an explosion of flags, a cairn of stones, truck horns, a view so wide it makes language feel narrow. Far below, a lake lies in organized turquoise, Yamdrok, a sacred curled dragon of water, waves touching beaches of powdered gold silt, monasteries perched on peninsulas, like thoughts that did not want to leave the shore. Beyond, more ranges, more light. Lhasa sits lower than many passes, yet it carries altitude like a crown. The valley opens, the river braids, and suddenly there is color, movement, gold. The Potala rises above the city like a statement in white and red. Palace, fortress, monastery, memory. Its walls are built into the hill as if the hill grew stories instead of rock. From the base, the steps seem endless. From a distance, the whole structure seems to float in the thin air, a ship moored to sky. Around it, the modern city runs in circles, traffic, shops, cell phone towers. But the older orbit is stronger. At Jokang, that orbit tightens. Pilgrims arrive from every corner of the plateau, from the Changthang in the north with its blue lakes and wild Kiang, from Amdo's round grass seas, from Kam's broken ridges, forests, and horse country. Some come in trucks, some in buses, some on motorcycles with sheepskin covers, some walking. Some have prostrated the whole way, body, hands, slide, rise, step, measuring distance not in kilometers but in prayers. Their faces are burned by wind and sun, their hair darkened with butter, their mala beads worn smooth. They join the kora, the circumambulation, around the temple, prayer wheels spinning, lips moving. Incense and juniper smoke, yak butter and sweat, bell and chant, the air itself is worship. Inside, butter lamps throw warm light on ancient statues blackened by centuries of smoke. Walls hold thankas telling Buddhist cosmology in pigments that survive generations. Monks move in maroon robes with a rhythm that belongs to study, debate, and daily duty. Outside on Barker Street, commerce and devotion are twins, selling prayer flags and offering them, buying yak butter and donating it, purchasing beads and using them. Sacred and ordinary never split, they share the same paving stones. Beyond cities and shrines, monasteries cling to cliffs and rise from hilltops, guardians of valleys and keepers of memory. Some are sprawling complexes the color of ochre and white, with assembly halls big enough to swallow an entire village. Others are a few cells and a prayer room, windows looking straight down into gorges. In winter, their red roofs are islands on snow. In summer, their bells ring over barley and river noise. For centuries, they copied texts, taught boys letters and philosophy, negotiated between nobles, and sent caravans on the trans-Himalayan trade: salt, wool, tea, turquoise, ideas. The plateau remembers older stories too: Bon, the indigenous religion, with its mountain spirits, sky deities, and rituals that tie people to place so tightly, even Buddhism chose to incorporate rather than erase. Many peaks are not just high, they are persons, witnesses, protectors. To circle them is to speak with them. To cut them is to offend. To live under them is to live in a contract. And behind all this, as distant as eternity and as present as breath, stand the Great White Ranges: Everest, Chomolungma, Lhasa, Cho Oyu, Shishapangma, North Faces, and long glaciers, avalanches without witnesses, wind banners streaming from ridges. On the northern Tibetan side, they rise strangely, not from deep, wet valleys of jungles, but from dry, high plains. You look across a flat world, and suddenly, there's the highest thing on earth, serene and brutal at once. This is the roof of the sky, thin, bright, sacred, wind-written, severe, generous. A landscape that speaks in altitude, in prayer flags, in yak bells, in meltwater. A place where the earth didn't just lift, it decided to live that way. West of Lhasa, the land opens and hardens. Valleys spread wider, villages sit farther apart, and the wind starts talking in a lower register. The road follows the Yarlung Changpo upstream, past fields of highland barley the color of old gold, past Mani walls, long, low stacks of stones carved with the six-syllable mantra, past white chortens set like punctuation at the edges of bridges and passes. Every village adds its own color: door frames painted in red and blue, yak hair ropes over lintels, prayer wheels half buried in stucco, children with cheeks burned copper chasing each other in boots too big. This is the Yarlung Valley, cradle of Tibetan kings. Before the great monasteries, before the red and yellow schools, before the scriptures traveled in caravans from India, there were warrior chiefs in this river valley who learned to bind clans into something bigger. They built fort palaces on hills, Yumbu Lakhang like a white arrow on a ridge, watching over irrigated fields below. From here, the idea of a single Tibet began to take shape, helped by horses that could manage altitude and by a religion that knew how to negotiate with mountains. When the court later looked outward, it would bring in Buddhist learning from Nepal and India, but the bones of authority were already local: water, pasture, hilltop, alliance. Trade moved through this high world like blood. From the south, over Himalayan passes, came bricks of dark tea, pressed and bound, essential for life on a meat and milk diet. From the north and west came salt, light, crunchy, carried from remote lakes on yak caravans in seasons when the ice held. From the plateau itself went wool, the fine, warm undercoat of sheep and the long fiber of yak, and sometimes turquoise, coral, and medicines dug from high meadows. Caravans snaked across brown hills, yak bells a slow metronome, drivers in heavy coats and long sleeves, boots thick with felt, faces masked against dust. At night they spread out in the lee of a hill, boiled tea, fed animals, and let the wind pray for them. Higher still lies the Changthang, the northern pasture land that seems to run forever. Here villages thin to encampments. Stone walls are replaced by yak hair tents, black, low, warm, smelling of smoke and wool. Nomadic families move with their herds along routes the wind could recite: spring pastures, summer highs, autumn back toward water, winter shelter behind a hill. Yaks are not just animals, they are solutions, Milk, butter, meat, hair for tents and rope, dung for fuel, strength for plowing, calm for crossing rivers. Even their grunting has a rhythm that matches hoof and prayer wheel. On these grasslands live other beings too, wild yaks, larger and darker than domestic ones, herds of Tibetan antelope running light over frozen ground, herds of kiang, wild asses tossing their manes, wolves and snow leopards hunting in an economy where one lost sheep matters. Nomads know them all and make adjustments, more dogs, closer herding, a quiet acceptance that the plateau belongs to predators as much as to people. Water, in the west, begins to change color. Lakes turn impossible shades, deep indigo, bottle green, milky turquoise from glacial flour, ringed with white salt rims and framed by mountains striped with snow. Some lakes are off limits, not by law but by reverence. Some are circled in summer by pilgrims, horses laden with tents and barley flour, drums beating, horns low and long. The wind carries scraps of song across kilometers of desert. When storms roll in, they come with a purple bottom and silver streaks, rain falling in curtains on one side of a valley and not the other, light splitting mountains into plains. Farther west still rises a mountain that does not compete in height, yet rules in meaning. Kang Rinpoche, Mount Kailash. 4 great rivers of Asia spring from around it, and 4 religions circle it. Buddhists, Bon practitioners, Hindus, Jains, each with its own story of why this peak is the axis of the world. Nobody climbs it. Nobody hammers pitons into its face. Nobody plants flags on top. The correct way to meet it is to walk around. One kora, one circumambulation, wipes away a lifetime of faults, some say. 108 make you a saint. Pilgrims from far Amdo and Kham, from Nepal, from India, from Bhutan, from within Tibet itself arrive dusty, sunburned, determined. Some walk upright, one snapping their flags. Some prostrate the whole way, body length by body length around boulders and overpasses where air itself is stingy. On the Dolmala, prayer flags make a roaring, colorful river. People leave offerings of hair, beads, nails, little parts of themselves, so that the mountain may remember them kindly. Nearby, in the desert of far western Tibet, yellow cliffs hold the memory of the Guj kingdom, caves and palaces carved into badlands, walls once painted with Buddhas, bodhisattvas, wrathful deities, lay donors in brocade. It is a reminder that even here, at the world's roof, empires rose and fell, art bloomed and faded, politics tangled monasteries and kings. Wind has eaten many walls, sun has bleached many faces, yet in shaded rooms the colors still glow, lapis, vermilion, gold, stubborn as the people who painted them. Monasteries in this western reach often look more fortress than cloister, browner and squatter than the white and red of central Tibet. They had to be. History here was not always peaceful. Rival lamasseries, shifting alliances with western Himalayan states, even incursions from Central Asia rolled through. So the gompa sat high, with narrow windows and thick doors, and the scriptures inside, lines of black ink on long, loose leaves, were treasures held not just against time but against men. What holds it all together is the steady background practice. The prayer flags replaced each year, the mani stones carved and added to walls, the little bowls of water set each morning on household altars, the butter offered to lamps in rooms barely above freezing. On the plateau, you do not always control the big things: wind, snow, sudden illness at altitude, a frozen pass, so you become exact with the small ones. That precision gives the land a feeling of being constantly in conversation with the invisible. Eastward, the plateau stops pretending to be flat. It buckles, fractures, and suddenly Tibet turns green. This is Kham, a land of narrow gorges, fast rivers, forested slopes, and people whose horses are as proud as they are. Villages cling to terraces above turquoise torrents. Houses rise 3 and even 4 stories high. White walls trimmed in deep red, windows framed in black, roofs stacked with firewood for long winters. Prayer flags don't just stand on passes here. They run like laundry along ridges, over bridges, between watchtowers. In summer, meadows explode with wildflowers, yaks graze in blue and yellow fields, and nomads pitch black tents beside streams that have the confidence of youth. Monasteries in Kham are more flamboyant, more vertical. Huge assembly halls painted saffron and scarlet sit under mountains that wear clouds like cloaks. Prayer wheels here are taller, horns are louder, festivals brighter. When the cham, sacred masked dances, begin, monks become deities, wrathful faces, jeweled crowns, swirling brocade, drums roll like thunder in a narrow valley, long trumpets throw sound up the slopes, and villagers in their best chubas watch with a mix of devotion and healthy curiosity. For them, religion is not a pale, quiet thing. It is color, music, movement, protection. Travel north from here, and the land opens again into Amdo, rolling grasslands, big skies, yak herds that look like dark weather, and towns built around great monastic universities. Lebrang, Kumbum, and others stretch in terraces of white, red, and gold along hillsides, their roofs a forest of golden finials. These were places where generations of monks memorized vast scriptures, debated philosophy in courtyards paved with stone, and learned medicine, astrology, and poetry. In winter, when breath hangs in the air like a second prayer, you can hear the sharp claps of debate, challenger and defender, logic like a game played at speed, theology tested in public. This scholarly world was never cut off from the traveling one. Pilgrims, traders, nobles, nomads, they all passed through. Tea caravans from Sichuan creaked in, loaded with dark bricks. In return, the plateau sent wool, medicinal herbs, and horses. In markets outside the monastery walls, you could buy yak butter, turquoise, corals, saddle ornaments, knives, dried cheese, and woodblock prints of deities to paste on your altar. A man might spend the morning spinning his prayer wheel clockwise around the white stupas and the afternoon haggling over a saddle. In all these regions, Lhasa's valley, Yarlung's cradle, the high Changthang, Kham's gorges, Amdo's grass, daily life moves to 3 steady beats: animals, weather, and prayer. At dawn, someone is already churning butter tea, salty, smoky, high-calorie fuel against altitude. Someone else is driving yaks or sheep toward pasture, prayer beads rolling through their fingers. Children head to class in a village school where Tibetan script curls like smoke on a blackboard, or to the monastery to begin studies. Women twist yak hair rope, card wool, spin, weave woolen aprons striped in bright colors, and gossip in the sun. Men repair walls, travel to town, or sit in the low, warm light of a house shrine, muttering mantras while a radio plays modern pop from far cities. Old and new live in the same room and don't argue much. Tibetan medicine, born from this land of extremes, is half science, half geography, half prayer. The math is not supposed to add up, only to work. Practitioners take pulses at 3 points on each wrist, listening with fingers the way monks listen with minds. They look at the tongue, the eyes, the skin. They ask about wind in the body, about bile, about phlegm, energies mirrored in the plateau's own winds, suns, and colds. Remedies are compounded from high-altitude herbs, minerals, sometimes pieces of animals that live only on certain slopes. Pills are rolled by hand, blessed, dried. Illness, like weather, is something to negotiate with, not to destroy. Some negotiations are more final. On this high, dry land, wood is precious and earth is often frozen. So the dead are given back to the sky. On a rocky hill outside a town, under a sky that could be a ceiling to the world, Rogyapas, sky burial practitioners, perform an old exact rite. The body is disassembled with practiced respect. Vultures who have been circling since dawn descend in a great beating of wings and in minutes return flesh to air. Bones are crushed and mixed with sampa for smaller birds. It is stark if you watch it from outside. To those inside, it is generosity. Nothing wasted, everything returned, the body feeding other life on the roof of the world. Throughout, the land keeps reminding its people and its visitors that elevation is not only physical. Lakes are deities, passes are thresholds, mountains are listening. A lone herder on a ridge will stop, take off his hat, and raise a pinch of barley flour to the wind, calling La Gyal Lo, victory to the gods. Truck drivers do the same at high passes, horns blaring between strings of prayer flags. Children spin the small prayer wheels at roadside stupas as naturally as they kick a ball. Spiritual practice is not an event, It is as constant as wind. And always, over towns and monasteries, over salt lakes and yak tents, over barley fields and snow passes, the sky stays wide and near. Clouds arrive like thoughts, stay for an hour, and move on. Light pours over whitewashed walls and gilded roofs, finds the eyes of statues in dark assembly halls, and leaves again toward the great peaks in the south. Tibet breathes in this light and writes its days with it. History on the plateau rarely moves in straight lines. It arrives in waves. One of the tallest of those waves rose in the 7th, 8th centuries when Songtsen Gampo and the kings after him pulled together the river valleys, the nomad lands, and the mountain tribes into a single Tibetan empire that looked outward instead of only upward. Marriage alliances tied Tibet to Nepal and to China's Tang court. Buddhist texts began to travel north over the Himalaya like migrating light. Artisans learned to build shrines not just for local deities, but for a universal path. Out of that time grew the first great temples, Yokang in Lhasa, Ramoch, the chapels in Yarlung, small compared to later monasteries, but already written in the grammar Tibet never abandoned. White walls, red bands, dark window frames, golden roofs, painted beams alive with lions and lotus. Then the empire loosened, as empires do, and power splintered into regional courts and monastic seats. Instead of one center, Tibet had several. Sami, the first monastery where Indian monasticism was tested against local practices. Sakya, mixing scholarly rigor with politics. Later, Ganden, Drepung, Sera near Lhasa, great cities of monks where philosophy was sharpened like a blade. And still later, Tashilhunpo in Shigatse, seat of the Panchen Lamas. Out in the hills, yogis and hermits took the teachings in other directions, Milarepa singing of mountains and mind in caves open to the wind, wandering lamas carrying icon and mantra to villages that had only heard of them. By the 17th century, a different kind of consolidation emerged. The Gelug school, with its emphasis on monastic discipline and study, rose to dominance, helped by Mongol patrons from the north. From this marriage of religion and worldly force came the institution the outside world now knows best, the Dalai Lama, spiritual leader, and for centuries, temporal ruler of much of Tibet. Lhasa became both a city of pilgrimage and a capital of administration. The Potala was enlarged to its present staggering form, a cliff-turned palace, a palace turned reliquary. Inside, chapels filled with scrolls, statues, reliquaries, and the golden stupas of previous Dalai Lamas. Outside, the kora around the Jokang never stopped, even while officials debated taxes and treaties in nearby buildings. Yet, rule on the plateau was always negotiated. Powerful nobles in their fortified estates, abbots of great monasteries with thousands of monks, chieftains out in Kham, trading families in Lhasa, all had to be balanced. Sometimes the balance was smooth, grain from one valley sent to another after a harsh winter, roads repaired by monastic crews, justice dispensed with reference to both dharma and custom. Sometimes it was not, rivalries between sects, local wars in eastern Tibet, invitations to foreign allies that later became headaches. The plateau might look empty from afar, but it was full of competing gravities. Long before modern borders were drawn, Tibet was already threaded into the surrounding world. To the south, the great trade to Nepal and India carried wool down, and tea, spices, cloth, and learning up. To the west, routes crossed toward Ladakh and Kashmir, passing monasteries that looked Tibetan, but spoke with a Himalayan accent. To the north, through Amdo, lines of contact reached Mongol lands and Chinese markets. On every road alongside salt and wool moved ideas, medical treatises, astrological manuals, ritual technologies, stories of lamas who could fly, tales of Chinese sages, Indian Mahasiddhas, Mongol Khans. The plateau was high, not closed. Then, the 19th and 20th centuries pulled the roof of the sky into a very different weather. One made of empires with maps and telegraphs. British India looked north and wondered where the passes led. Qing China, weakened but still claiming a protectorate, sent officials. Explorers, spies, pundits, and merchants probed the high trails. Lhasa tried to stay what it had been, a city of pilgrims protected by altitude and custom. but the world had grown too fast. The 1904 British expedition forced its way to Lhasa. Treaties were signed under duress, the sense of isolation cracked. The 20th century's middle decades brought the decisive turn. A new state in China asserted sovereignty over Tibet. Armies crossed high passes not for salt or tea, but for politics. Monasteries that had run their own lives for centuries had to answer to distant offices. Land and power were restructured, resistance flared, especially in Kham and Amdo, where local leaders and monks knew how to fight. In 1959, after an uprising in Lhasa, the 14th Dalai Lama left the city and crossed south into India, along with tens of thousands of Tibetans, nobles, monks, traders, ordinary families, carrying little more than what could fit on a pack animal and in memory. Dharamsala, in the Indian Himalaya, became a second Lhasa, a government in exile, a school for children born away from their plateau, a place where ritual and language could breathe without oversight. Inside Tibet, change moved fast. Roads punched across gorges, airfields appeared, towns expanded, collectivization and later market reforms altered old rhythms. Many monasteries suffered, closed, dismantled, their monks dispersed, especially during the Cultural Revolution, when religious images across China were smashed and scriptures burned. Yet even that storm could not scour everything. People hid statues in caves, wrapped thangkas in yak hair, and buried them, memorized liturgies so that when books disappeared, words did not. When the storm passed, some of those objects and texts came back into the light. Monasteries were rebuilt, sometimes with government support, sometimes with local money, sometimes with donations from Tibetans abroad. Prayer flags, never fully gone, multiplied again on ridges. Modern Lhasa today is a place of layers. In the old Barkor quarter, the smell is still butter, incense, wool, dust from thousands of boots. Pilgrims still spin the wheels, still prostrate at the Chokhang's door, still circle the Potala. But beyond the ring road rise apartment blocks, banks, neon signs, highways, railway stations. The Qinghai-Tibet Railway, an engineering feat over permafrost and at oxygen-poor passes, brings in people and goods from far away, knitting the plateau tighter into China's economy. Mandarin signs hang over shops that sell turquoise and coral. Young Tibetans text in 2 scripts, listen to pop from Lhasa, Chengdu, and Seoul, shoot videos of their horses and their grandmother's prayer wheels. A monk in maroon may stand at a traffic light. A herder may ride a motorcycle with a prayer flag tied to the mirror. Old and new no longer take turns. They coexist at street corners. In the east, towns that were once stops on caravan routes are now hubs on paved highways. Schools teach Tibetan and Chinese. Clinics offer both Tibetan medicine and biomedicine. At the same time, big hydro projects harness the drop of rivers born on the plateau. Mining of copper, gold, lithium in some areas opens mountains that were previously only prayed to. For many families, this means income, roads, phones, education. For others, it means worry about water, pasture, sacred peaks, about how much change a landscape can absorb before it forgets what it was. Yet if you step away from the new roads, altitude reasserts itself. A village harvests barley with sickles as it has for generations. A grandmother turns a handheld prayer wheel thousands of times a day, murmuring Om Mani Padme Hum as steadily as her own pulse. A group of men rebuilds a chorten, passing baskets of whitewash, repainting eyes that look in all 4 directions. At a festival, horsemen in blue and scarlet gallop across a grass field at 4,200 meters, silk streamers flying, rifles cracking into mountain air, crowds cheering exactly as they did before electricity. In winter, a boy at 4,500 meters still walks out at dawn to break ice for the yaks, his breath clouding in air that belongs more to the sun than to people. Tibet has seen armies, merchants, lamas, explorers, missionaries, revolutionaries, engineers. It has bent, retreated, asserted, adapted. What has not changed is the high contract between people and place. Mountains are persons, rivers are gifts, wind is a vehicle for words, and land that high must be treated as if someone were listening. Stand long enough on the plateau, and you begin to hear the slow stories, the ones that take more than a dynasty, more than a government, to tell. One of them is water. Glaciers on the high ranges have been thinning. their blue compressed centuries melting in seasons instead of in ages. Lakes swell, then retreat. Braided rivers in summer run louder, brown with silt, then fall abruptly in autumn to levels elders don't remember. In villages that have always read the mountains like scripture, people point to bare rock where snow used to hang all year and say, quietly, that the world is changing. Another long story is grass. The high meadows of the Changthang and Namtso have always lived in a delicate pact with hooves and wind. Too few animals, and the land turns dusty and hard. Too many, and the sod splits, permafrost melts, black soils blow away down valley. Climate shifts, market demand for cashmere, and a desire for more security have swelled herds in some areas beyond what the turf can heal from. Around some lakes, a fringe of desert is creeping in, pale and fine, where once there were wildflowers. Nomads who know exactly which spring appears when the ice goes and how long one winter camp can bear a herd, find themselves asked to settle, to fence, to change a rhythm that has matched the wind for centuries. Some do, some refuse, most do both in stages, trying to keep the old mobility inside the new rules. Between ice and grass stands the yak, still the emblem of survival at 4,500 meters. Yaks, with their long hair ruffling in the wind and their breath like steam, cross rivers whose water would kill a horse. They pull plows over fields that are really gravel. They give milk thick enough to churn into butter that will burn in lamps for hours. Their dung, hand-shaped into patties and dried on walls, makes blue smoke in stoves in houses where no tree can grow. Their hides become blankets, their ribs make sleds, their bones sew. Lose the yak and the plateau would have to rethink itself. Protect the yak and you protect the people. Ritual remains the everyday technology for keeping this high machine running. At Lhasa, Tibetan New Year, households repaint door frames, hang new protection charms, make offerings of torma, colored barley flower figures, and throw roasted barley into the air shouting blessings. At Saga Dawa, commemorating the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and parinirvana, crowds climb to places of power, hills above towns, monasteries on cliffs, old trees, to raise a new central flagpole with layers of fresh prayer flags. The old pole is lowered with care, its faded colors folded, never discarded as trash. Children watch which way the wind takes the first flags, a private forecast for the year. Pilgrimage too persists as both faith and exercise, families still circle Lake Namtso under a sky that seems to drink color out of everything else. Traders still do the Linkor, the outer circuit around Lhasa, even if they arrive now by train instead of on ponies. On Mount Kailash's trails, you can meet a woman in brand new hiking boots and a man in felt boots worn to the shape of his life, both breathing hard at 5,600 meters, both stopping to press their heads to mani stones. The dialects on the path have multiplied: Hindi, Nepali, English, Mandarin, Korean, but the mountain has not reduced its demands. Wildlife, shy but present, is the plateau's quiet chorus. Black-necked cranes land in high wetlands in spring, stepping with long grace among yaks. Bar-headed geese, born for altitude, overfly the Himalaya and drop onto Tibetan lakes like paper lanterns. Snow leopards pad across scree slopes at dusk, almost invisible until they turn their heads. Tibetan foxes, with their square, unimpressed faces, watch everything with amusement. Conservationists, both Tibetan and from afar, now track these animals with cameras and satellites, tying ancient reverence to modern data. Monks place camera traps near monasteries. Nomads report sightings over mobile phones. Protecting the plateau's animals has become, for some, a new form of merit-making. Modernity here is not a single road, but several running at once. Solar panels lean against yak hair tents, powering a single light bulb and a phone. Motorbikes race where once only hooves went. On the outskirts of Lhasa, industrial parks and apartment towers promise jobs to young people who might not wish to herd in snowstorms. Tour buses unload at the Potala and Jokang, their passengers climbing slowly in the thin air, clutching water bottles, eyes wide at the colors. Hotels offer oxygen in lobby rooms. A high-speed communication network reaches towns once cut off for half the year. Young monks watch teachings from India on their screens. Faraway families video call grandmothers sitting in sunlit courtyards spinning wool. With this speed comes tension. How much building can a sacred lake take before its reflection is ruined? How much mining can a mountain receive before its spirit and people's trust are broken? How do you let the plateau's children study science, medicine, languages, and still hear the wind as prayer? These are questions asked in tents, in monasteries, in government offices, in schools, often in 2 or 3 languages in the same conversation. There are no quick answers. The plateau has always made decisions slowly, at the pace of yaks and passes, and yet, for all the change, there is continuity that feels almost geological. Dawn still hits the Potala in a long, slow slide of gold. Smoke still rises from rooftop burners, juniper and sage carrying prayers for health, for rain, for the safe return of travelers. In remote valleys, Mani stones weather at the same imperceptible rate as they did when kings rode under them. In summer, monks in Aiditio high hermitages still debate until dusk, their claps cracking like ice fractures in the cold air. At night, in places far from towns, the stars are so many and so near you can believe, briefly, that some of them might actually be listening. Tibet can be read as mystic country, as geopolitical plateau, as water tower of Asia, as cultural treasure, as fragile ecosystem. All of those are true. But it can also be read more simply, as a high conversation between earth and sky with people living inside it. A conversation made of wind, light, prayer, migration, of flags that decay and are renewed, of rivers that begin small and end as nations, of mountains that accept offerings and sometimes do not. Visitors come and go, explorers, pilgrims, soldiers, tourists, scholars, and leave with different stories. The plateau stays and keeps telling its own. In the end, the roof of the sky is not just a place where the land is tall. It is where everything is brought closer. Sun, storm, stars, gods, questions. Where the boundary between sacred and ordinary thins like air. Where a single breath reminds you that life here is chosen every day against difficulty and chosen joyfully. Where, when the wind catches the 5-colored flags on a pass and blasts out over the valley, it carries not only old mantras, but also the newest hopes of a people still building a home in the highest light.